Welcome back to the show, folks. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. Thought I'd jump on this afternoon. This is kind of a bonus show. We're going to do a breakdown for the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight tonight, coming to you in the early hours of Sunday morning, as opposed to tonight, I suppose, from Dallas, Texas. It's the main event. It's eagerly awaited. There seems to be a massive interest now in this kind of, I won't call it influencer boxing, not for this one, I suppose, because Jake has had a number of fights now at this stage, and obviously Nate is a seasoned combat athlete and stuff like that. Not so much in the realm of boxing, but still, it's an intriguing lineup when you go through and stuff like that. We will take a look at the tail of the tape. We'll discuss what we've seen at the weigh-ins yesterday, and we'll give a little bit of a breakdown that I've put together here, some notes. Give me your thoughts on it as well if you're in the chat. And let me know how you feel about this. I mean, boxing purists are not really liking this at the moment at all. They've a lot of views on it and stuff like that. But seen an awful lot of boxers coming out as well, the likes of Mike Tyson and stuff like that, all saying it's they think it's really good for boxing. It seems a lot of this influencer boxing and stuff like that is really rejuvenated the sport that was somewhat on a slide and on a downward spiral, if you like. But there's a renewed interest in it now, especially with a lot of the crossover fights and stuff like that. So let us know your thoughts on that as well. Sean's in the comments. How are you, Sean? Hope you're having a good weekend. Smart boy Jake realizing he can't beat a real boxer. So back to fighting retired MMA fighters. Yeah, well, you have to pad out your record, don't you? Really, and no better way to come off a loss to go back and refind yourself really and stuff like that. But I do think it's good for these athletes coming in as well. They're getting paid an absolute fortune. If you look at the money they're getting paid compared to what they got paid in the UFC and stuff like that, there's no comparison unless you're caught up in the McGregor fights and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. Legend is in. How are you, Legend Mayor? Thanks for joining us. Good to see you there, my friend. And Sean is also back again. I'm watching SummerSlam tonight, but I predict Jake will dominate him for all the rounds except the last, because Nate will land a Stockton slap, then point at him and knock him out. Can you imagine if that happened? Imagine. I think you'll probably be able to squeeze in both, Sean, because it's the main event, so I don't expect that main event at Dallas to happen until probably be about 5:30 in the morning. So SummerSlam might be nearly done at that stage, but I'll be the same. I'll be trying to squeeze in both, and it's a great weekend of sport. The Community Shield is on tomorrow. Friendlies going on. United are in town against Bilbao tomorrow in the Aviva, as far as I know. Community Shield, SummerSlam, the boxing. It's a great weekend of sport and stuff like that, and also. Sean's in. Love what Nate said at the ceremonial weigh-in. However, the fight goes, this guy can't. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely crazy. Let's take a quick look at the tail of the tape before we get into that. Of course, this is the fighting. People are pumped for this. There seems to be a huge amount of excitement around it, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant for Nate as well. He's going to get a massive payday out of this as well, and he's quite the seasoned vet at this stage. Here's your tail of the tape anyway. Jake Paul 26, Nate Diaz 37. Jake has had 7 fights. Nate has had 35, but of course most of them in mixed martial arts. Wins. Jake has 6. The one loss, of course, to Tommy Fury. As Sean said earlier in the comments, stepped up to Tommy Fury and got beaten. I feel kind of, Sean, what did you make of the Tommy Fury fight? I felt in that fight he just started a bit slow. It was like he was in a bit of awe about it. But then once he got into his rhythm and started fighting, he sort of grew into the fight a little bit. But definitely started off slow. Nate with 22 wins. Of course, the big one being the McGregor one, of course, and a few others after that as well. But huge as well. And losses, Jake with the 1, which is Tommy Fury. And Nate has 13 losses. Knockouts 4 to Jake and 5 to Nate. But if you look at Nate's career, it's not really necessarily surrounded by those kind of knockouts and stuff like that. Both men are 6'1" and 6 foot, so not much in it there. The weigh-in was interesting, yes, and we'll come back to that in a minute. And they've identical reach 76. Long limbs on these boys and stuff like that. You see with Nate as well, he's quite gangly in the arms and stuff like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I've heard reports that Logan and Ricochet is opening tonight, so Logan can fly out to watch the fight. Interesting. I don't know whether he'd get there in time. Would he? Couldn't see him getting there in time. Detroit to Dallas. Don't know. That's a stretch. That's a stretch unless he's. I mean, what time would he be out of there at? I mean, they'd be probably fighting at what, 10:30 Dallas time, um, Detroit time. He'd be going on at what, 7ish, 8. Yeah, no, there's no way. I'd be very surprised if he makes that. Very, very surprised if he makes that. Interesting that they both clashed as well, from an interesting point of view. But it'd be great if he did. I mean, look, I don't know if you watched on the Netflix documentary on Jake Paul. You can see the love those two brothers have for each other. And the sport is unbelievable. There's a part in it where Logan lost his fight, I think, against KSI, was it? And Jake was in tears. Jake was in tears over him losing. Like, he felt so bad for him and stuff like that. And also, really, really interesting. I think he wanted to pace himself and feel him out, but took too long to do that. Fury had done too much damage for him to come back at that point. But Jake is soft, so I have no sympathy for him. You should be a fan from then, Sean. You're a fan of these soft guys, no? But yeah, but that's your tell of the tape. If you look at the weigh-ins yesterday, it's an interesting one when I'm looking at the weigh-ins, because they kind of tell a little bit of a story as well. The weigh-in yesterday, if you look at Jake Paul looked shredded. He was in great condition and stuff like that, and fairly confident and all that kind of stuff. Nate came out. Got the feeling with Nate, he was a little bit in awe of it, a little bit. And you think about this, the experience Nate Diaz has had dealing with McGregor and various UFC opponents and stuff like that, and all the other controversy that goes with being a Diaz brother, I suppose. Sorry about that. But interesting, yeah, you looked at the weigh-in yesterday, and it was a strange one. Because Nate looked like he was working up to the weight. And he looked like he was trying to get there. I don't know what happened there. Some came across me or something. Sorry about that. Yeah, and he looked like he looked a bit pudgy kind of and stuff like that. So he was trying to work up to that 185. I think he weighed in at 184 and a half or something like that, or 184.6 or something. Jake was right on the 185. But that's a big weight, you know what I mean? We know Nate carries a little bit of weight anyway. He's kind of an unusual physique really for a martial artist. Because he's kind of gangly and stuff like that at 6 foot, But it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Obviously, you've got Orthodox versus a Southpaw, which is always an intriguing lineup. But let's see. Quick look at the betting as well. The betting, obviously, Jake is the heavy favorite on the DraftKings website and stuff like that. He's a minus 295, and Nate is a plus 220. So on the basis of the betting, you would think that the fight isn't as close as what people think. Sean's back in. I haven't put myself through that there, but I know they both have a lot of love for each other, which is nice. I like Logan more than I like Jake, though, which is not very much. Absolutely. Yeah, Logan, in fairness to Logan's doing brilliant things at the moment. Looks like he's doing excellent stuff at the moment in WWE. Really, really putting on some great shows. I bet I'll watch SummerSlam instead. Yup. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll be watching SummerSlam, absolutely. We have to maybe set up a twin screen type of thing or something like that, so we'll see, But if you give a little bit of a breakdown to this, let's break it down a little bit, the fight. I kind of broke it down into kind of a couple of kind of subsections: boxing ability, defensive ability, which is obviously a big one, power, and then obviously cardio. The cardio one kind of speaks for itself. But if you look at boxing ability, you look at Jake Paul, he has a great right hand. His right hand is really his damage. I'm sure he has a good left one as well, but the right hand is where a lot of the damage comes to us. And it's fast with a ton of power as well. He's also improved on landing it as well. He was also using it in the Fury fight as well. But I said that slow start, and as Sean said in the comments, trying to catch up and stuff like that was going to be really, really difficult. But that right hand, if you think about it, has put a few guys asleep and stuff like that. And we'll talk about power shortly and stuff like that. Is also his utilization of the jab is really good as well. So it means he can keep people at distance and stuff like that to then launch that right hand. We know with Nate, the dynamic of this fight as well is there's going to be a technical skill level there from Jake. And with Nate's boxing ability, if you look at it, even if you look at some of the UFC countdown shows when he's hitting bags or hitting mitts and stuff like that, it's not only is a southpaw, but it's so unorthodox as well. He throws punches from really unusual angles, flailing arms, all that kind of stuff, which sometimes negates some of the power that he could have in it. As Sean mentioned in the comments as well, the Stockton slap and all that he's renowned for and stuff like that. Don't be surprised if he opens up the hands a little bit and clatters him with a few of them tonight as well, just to rattle Jake's jaw a little bit and ante up the kind of the situation and stuff like that, make it more gangster, as they say, and the Diaz brothers and stuff like that. But with Nate, if you look at Nate's kind of, um, even a lot of his knockouts and stuff like that, it's a lot of volume and stuff like that that leads to sort of TKOs and that kind of thing and stuff like that. So he works on volume as opposed to power. You'll rarely see Nate actually throw a punch. It's a killer knockout punch. It's normally a collection of damage and stuff that normally happens there and stuff like that. Um, yeah, but it's interesting. You look at Nate as well, and he's landed the third most strikes in UFC history at 2487. Now, admittedly, they're not all punches, but he's the third most strikes in UFC history of that. Now, we also don't forget as well, if you look at Nate Diaz as well, he's been around a long, long time. You can see the volume of fights he's had and stuff like that. He was originally an Ultimate Fighter winner and all back in the day when we had this cheeky, long, brash little kid coming in, the younger brother of Nick Diaz with a lot to live up to and stuff like that. And he certainly lived up to that. And it'll be interesting to see if Nick is around tonight and stuff like that. I haven't seen much of Nick in the build up and stuff like that, but it'll be interesting to see if Nick is around tonight. He'll be putting his own slant on things as well, and that'll be very interesting. Um, Defensive ability, we want to talk about, and when we talk about toughness, um, there's no better guy to talk about in terms of toughness than Nate Diaz. Certainly, this man can take damage. We've seen some of those bloodbath fights he's been in the UFC and stuff like that, where he's just opened up and seems like he's at a war and enjoys every minute of it. But Nate's kind of his style is to be in there, in that kind of area to where you can be hitting stuff like that, and he just bites down his gum shield and walks forward. And defensively, he likes to sort of take a little bit to give a little bit and stuff like that and all. And I'm just wondering, Jake with his jab and with that heavy right hand and stuff like that, is Nate going to be able to take that kind of punishment and stuff like that? And how long can he sustain it for? We're talking 10 rounds tonight. Now it's 10 3-minute rounds, and we'll talk about in the cardio course, as with Nate has gone through some of those 5-rounder wars in the UFC that are 5-minute rounds. So it's kind of, 30 minutes versus 25 minutes, but 5 minutes out there seems to be a long time and stuff, and that could really hinge on the cardio situation. But defensive ability, if you look at Diaz, he got hit a lot in the UFC. He's absorbed on average 3.7 significant strikes per minute in the UFC. So he can absolutely take it. There's no doubt about it. And his striking defense is rated at about 52%, which means that Jake should get a lot of joy tonight in terms of his striking and landing. But as we know how durable Nate Diaz is, it's a weird one. You look at Jake Paul's style as well, and if he's in the pocket and fighting and stuff like that, when Nate steps in there as well, Jake, when he throws those heavy shots, he can leave himself quite open at times as well for the counter off Nate as well. So you could see Nate coming in with an over the top, maybe inside that pocket as well, and catching him. But I think if you look at boxing ability, you're going to give it down to, it's going to go to Jake. I think when you match up the orthodox versus a southpaw that's kind of a bit erratic and stuff like that. Defensive ability, I think, goes to Jake as well, because I think Jake will be slightly more protective of himself. I think Nate only knows one way to fight, and that's to bite down on the gum shield and walk forward. And that might just play into Jake's hands with his footwork and stuff like that. I'm not sure what Nate's footwork is going to be like in terms of boxing. I know what Jake's is like and stuff like that. He's more than capable of moving. He's not heavy on his feet. Nate might be a little bit heavy on his feet, so we shall see. So I'm kind of putting defensive ability down to Jake as well, but more based on movement than anything else. If we talk about power, um, Sean's back in the comments. I'll probably have like two screens tonight, one for SummerSlam and the other for the Rob Encore. Yeah, so now you can fight. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if we go in and talk about power, then I think this is an area where Jake Paul has an advantage. We've seen his power. He's absolutely put Woodley to sleep. He put Askren to sleep, to name but a few. And the other guy, Nate Robinson, as well. He's put those three guys absolutely cold to sleep. So we know when he lands it, we know how strong it is and stuff like that. And whatever you think about Ben Askren, who's not really a boxer, he's more of a wrestler and stuff like that. But when you look at him, Tyrone Woodley has seriously striking skill set and stuff like that, and he knocked him absolutely dead cold. So I think in terms of power as well, I'm probably going to give it to Jake Paul. Um, I don't know a whole lot about Nate Diaz's power because obviously we haven't seen him box a whole lot. Um, I'm sure based on the damage he's delivered to people in the UFC and stuff like that. And of course, we're talking much different gloves as well this time. But again, it's more prolonged. The damage he creates on people is more prolonged. And if you look at the way he kind of snaps those strikes and stuff like that, and the way he twists his wrist and stuff like that as well, it kind of negates the power. And I wonder in the 4 ounce gloves, does it allow you just to create a bit more damage and stuff like that? Would you create as much damage in the boxing gloves? If that is the case, I'm not too sure. Um, then I went on just cardio wise, and I think cardio wise, this is where Nate has the advantage. We know the boys are himself and the brother are heavily involved in triathlons and stuff like that. I know they've done that Alcatraz swim in San Francisco a number of times. Craziness doing that kind of thing and stuff like that. And they're also, you can see from the two boys as well, um, Nate and Nick, that they've gone through some wars in the UFC where 5 rounds is generally not a problem to them and stuff like that. So I think in this case, I think from a cardio point of view, Nate Diaz, I think, will win out. I think he'd have no problem doing the 10 rounds. And especially those 3 minute rounds are going to just feel so short to him because he's so used to 5 minute rounds. And also, it'll be interesting to see how Jake's cardio stands up to a guy actually just pushing forward all the time and keeping that kind of intensity on him. And whereas a lot of boxers will slip into the pocket and slip out of the pocket, and it won't be as intense as if you have a guy on top of you all the time and stuff like that. I don't expect Nate to stand off in any way at all. I think they'll engage right from the get go. Um, so I think definitely Jake's cardio. Whereas we can see his cardio is decent. He's done a number of 6 rounders and he's done a couple of 8 rounders as well. I think it's really important to stress the point that I think Nate, from a cardio point of view, probably has better cardio. But we shall see. But overall, I think, when you're looking at it and you kind of weigh it up, you're going to get a sort of, it'll be interesting to see Jake Paul ratcheting up that kind of shit talking there like he does as well, and that kind of bullying tactic. And for Nate, can he make it nasty and actually drag Jake into deep water? Will be really, really interesting, and how Jake would respond to that. Andrew's in the comments. How are you, Andy? Good. Hope you're having a good weekend. Hope you're looking forward to SummerSlam tonight and the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz and all that, and any football tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. Hope you're having a good weekend. But yeah, it's gonna be really, really. It's intriguing how this one is going to go. I'm sure Nate will want to lay down a marker and not necessarily let it go the way the other MMA fighters have gone. I mean, if you look at Jake, he's beaten Anderson Silva, he's beaten Ben Askren, he's beaten Tyrone Woodley, to name a few. Obviously, he's coming off that bad loss with Tommy Fury. And so he obviously wants to get back on the winning track and then potentially propel himself back into another boxing fight and stuff like that. But it's great to see this. It's huge paydays for these guys and stuff like that. Nate stands to earn a fortune out of this fight, I would imagine, tonight, as the pay-per-view must be through the roof. Um, in terms of predictions, how do I see this going? I wouldn't be surprised, because the damage that you sustain in the UFC, they tend to, kind of fix it up a little bit and let the fight keep on going. I think doctors in the boxing are a bit more pragmatic in terms of how they view cuts and various things like that and all. I think if Jake deploys his game behind the jab and releasing that right hand, I think he could sustain. He could push a lot of damage onto Nate, and I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get something like maybe a doctor's stoppage in the 8th round or something like that. I think Nate is in for quite a bruising night. I think he's going to take a lot of damage in terms of his style and trying to get inside that range to Jake and stuff like that, the way Jake moves. I wonder what Nate's footwork is going to be like. Is he going to be on the toes, or is it going to be quite, you know, stagnant and flat and heavy and stuff like that? Also, looking at Nate trying to, at 184 and a half or 185 nearly and stuff like that. That's heavy weight for Nate to be fighting at. I don't think he's ever fought at 185. I think the highest he's fought at, I think, is 170. But for Jake, 185 seems lightish enough when you see the condition he's in at the weigh-in compared to Nate. I haven't said that carrying that muscle as well can gas you a little bit as well compared to if you're slightly chubby with a bit of fat. We've seen that with Big Country, with Roy and stuff like that. Those big guys who are carrying weight and all, their cardio can be decent as well. So we'll see what happens. But my prediction, I'm thinking what you're going to do is you're going to get maybe a doctor's stoppage, and maybe in round 8 or something like that. But it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. So yeah, let us know your predictions in the comments. And if you're watching it on the replay, of course, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and drop a like on the video. Let us know what way you think this is going to go. Coming at you thick and fast tonight, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. Surely to be a barn burner. This ring is going to be covered in claret, no doubt. So let's see what happens. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Cheers.